I'm going to call the meeting to order. And ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Hagenow.
Present.
Councilmember Kerr. Here. Councilmember Parmet. Councilmember Sullivan.
Here.
Councilmember Thisted. Present. Mayor Riley.
Present.
There are 5 members present.
I'd just like to state for the record that Councilmember Parmet's absence is excused. The next item is the approval of the agenda. And can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Moved, is there a second? Councilmember Thisted.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. The next item is a proclamation honoring the service of Gretchen Davis, our council member who unfortunately resigned last week to move to a much warmer climate. And with that, I would like to ask the clerk to please read the proclamation. I recognize, please read the proclamation.
A proclamation of the town of Keystone, Colorado, of the mayor and town council recognizing Gretchen Davis's service to the town of Keystone. Whereas the citizens of the town of Keystone, Colorado have been blessed with the remarkable leadership and dedication of Gretchen Davis. And whereas Gretchen Davis has demonstrated unwavering commitment and exemplary service while serving as a key member of the Keystone Incorporation Committee, Election Commission, Charter Commission, Incorporation Transition Committee, and the Town Council for the town of Keystone, Colorado. And whereas Gretchen Davis's service to the community of Keystone began long before her service to the town as president of the Keystone Owners Association and a member of the Keystone Citizens League Board. And whereas Gretchen Davis's tireless efforts, steadfast integrity, and commitment to the people of Keystone demonstrates the highest principles of democracy and civic engagement. And whereas through her leadership, Gretchen Davis has fostered an atmosphere of transparency, fairness, and inclusivity, allowing the voices of the community to be heard and respected. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the mayor and the town council of Keystone, Colorado, do hereby honor and recognize Gretchen Davis for her outstanding service and invaluable contributions to the town of Keystone and our community. Further, we hereby commend Gretchen Davis for her exemplary leadership, commendable professionalism, and unwavering commitment to democratic ideals.
Is there any discussion?
I just want to note that this said it all, but she will be missed as a colleague, but more so as a dear friend.
I echo those comments, by the way. I've worked with Gretchen since about 2010, so I have about a 15-year history working with her, and cites her contributions to this town, which have been tremendous. She was very instrumental in corporation. I will miss her as a dear friend. So, can I have a motion to approve the proclamation? Councilmember Thisted.
Motion to approve the proclamation in honor of Gretchen Davis.
Councilmember. I second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hands. Opposed? The proclamation is approved. The next item on the agenda is communications to council, and again, I would invite anyone in the audience to come forward and speak to council. It can be on any topic whatsoever, no limitations. Just ask you to please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And with that, I'm open for comments. Is there anyone online who would like to speak? All right. With no one standing in line here or anyone online who has indicated they'd like to speak, I'll declare the communications to council session closed. And now we have the consent agenda, which consists of resolution 2025-10, the meeting minutes of February 25th, 2025 meeting minutes, and another item, which is the Town of Keystone 25-003 Class 2 site permit. Council member,
I move to approve the consent agenda.
is there a second? Second. Councilmember Hagan, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. The next item is the is a public hearing on ordinance 2025-0-5. And at this point, I'd like to ask the clerk to please read the title into the record.
Ordinance 2025-0-05, an ordinance of Town Council of the Town of Keystone, Colorado, amending ordinance 2024-0-14 regarding the remittance of lodging tax.
And at this council meeting, we're having this public hearing. The council will listen to any comments that the public would like to make and consider them in our deliberations. Our procedures for tonight is first we'll have the hearing. For this hearing is first we'll hear a report from the town manager, and then we will take public comment on the ordinance. And again, that comment will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. And again, please line up behind the podium when it's your turn, or raise your hand if you're online, if you wish to speak. And neither the council or the manager will answer questions or respond to comments during the public hearing portion. In following the public hearing will be closed, and then the council will deliberate on the ordinance. And with that, can I have an introductory presentation by the town manager?
Yes, I will let our finance director, Heike Fox, and our town attorney, Jennifer.
So this ordinance is just, is amending the ordinance that way our tax remittance aligns with the Colorado Department of Revenue. Some are required to submit monthly, some quarterly, some annually. And so the passing of this ordinance will align us with the Colorado Department of Revenue with their lodging tax submittals.
Are there any questions by the council before we start? No questions? At this point then, since there's no questions, I'll allow the public comment. And if you would again like to speak, please step forward to the podium or raise your hand, and comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Is there anyone online wishing to comment? Hearing none, I will now close the public hearing and open the floor for discussion of the ordinance and a motion. Councilmember Kerr.
I think our finance director has given us a common sense approach that if you have to pay these taxes, at least you're not going to have to adapt to two different systems completely. So thank you for that.
Councilmember Sol.
To approve ordinance 2025-008, an ordinance of the town council of Town of Keystone, Colorado, amending ordinance 2024-014 regarding the remittance of lodging tax.
Second. I believe it is by
Mr. Town Manager.
I believe it's ordinance 2025-014 05.
06.
Oh,
It's 06.
five.
Is it 5?
Five.
Yes, yes, 5, you're right.
Yes, 05. You said earlier. Oh,
Sorry.
Second the amendment.
Move to second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. And would ask the clerk to please read the roll.
Councilmember Hagenow.
Yes.
Councilmember Kerr. Approved. Councilmember Sullivan.
Approved.
Councilmember Thisted. Approved. Mayor Riley.
Approved.
There are 5 votes to approve.
All right, the next item on the agenda is ordinance 2025-06. And I'll ask the clerk to please read the title into the record.
Ordinance 2025-0-06, an ordinance of Town Council of the Town of Keystone, Colorado regarding wildlife-proof refuse containers and the feeding of wildlife.
Procedures are the same as we had for the last public hearing. With that, I'll ask, with the town manager, please provide a presentation.
okay, I will keep this brief as it's the second reading of an ordinance that we also worked about several times. This requires wildlife-proof containers and wildlife-proof dumpster enclosures. The ordinance is unchanged from the first reading, except the accidental redundant section 8C. All enclosures defined in this chapter shall have self-closing doors and latching devices. That phrase was removed from the ordinance. Self-closing doors is not a requirement of the ordinance as it reads. Any questions about the ordinance?
Council, any questions? No questions? Sorry. Councilmember Sullivan.
Okay. And maybe this would be somewhere else. I know we discussed rebates for. We'll be bringing forth an entirely different proposal to set up a grant program to help individual residents pay for wildlife food containers.
Is that proposal on a timeline that would support the times spelled out in this ordinance?
Yes, it will be.
Any other comments? Councilmember Kerr.
I'm lost. Is it before or after public?
This is before public comment.
It's just,
But no other questions of staff. We now have an opportunity to hear public comment. And again, if you wish to make public comment, please step forward, state your name and where you live, and you're limited to 3 minutes.
keep it alive.
And our clerk is timing.
Steve Martin, live in Elk Crossing subdivision. I guess my question is, we are a single family neighborhood of 24 homes and we have a community dumpster. So as I read it, I was curious if the requirement for a roof was still being considered, because our current enclosure is a 7-foot fence surrounding 4 sides with a 3-foot open walkway. And the dumpster provided to us has 2 sliding doors on either side of the dumpster. And in reaching out to our management company, who reached out to the trash hauler, I requested to see if they had a dumpster that would have a self-closing or self-latching so that someone couldn't leave the sliding doors open. And the other concern that came back from the trash hauler was, if we were to put a roof on there, there was a concern or question about how they currently open up the doors, lift the dumpster up and drop it into that. So with some type of a roof enclosure, which I understand to keep the wildlife out, there was some concern about how the trash haulers, do they now have to try and slide out that dumpster fully out of the enclosure and then lift it, or what needs to be done? But in reading that, that was just a couple of thoughts and questions and concerns that we had. Thank you.
Any other comments? Anyone online? Right, with no other comments, at this point, I'll close the public hearing. And again, open this up for discussion, on the motion. And as we start this, I would like to ask the town manager to respond to that last comment.
The expectation is that you would have to reconstruct the enclosure to include the roof. I know it's a bit of something for the trash companies, but they're very used to backing dumpsters out of enclosed places. It sounds like you already have probably a wildlife-proof refuse container within the enclosure. So there might be some leeway on when the time requirement for reconstructing the enclosure happens. You would just have to talk to me.
Any discussion on the ordinance? Councilmember Kerr.
Because I don't want us to become a nanny government. It's very intrusive into private lives. I looked at this very closely. I applaud Councilmember Permet for bringing it to our attention originally. And I looked at a lot of mountain towns in Colorado and other states. Bottom line is living in harmony with wildlife is part of why we're here. It's part of the character of our town. And it comes with responsibilities to protect the health and welfare of both people and wildlife. So although this ordinance is 8 pages long, in order to spell out clearly the guidance, and I thank you for that work, John, we can sum it up in plain language. Bear resistant containers will be required throughout the town when multiple residences and or commercial establishments use enclosures for refuse containers. Those enclosures will be bear resistant, and feeding of wildlife is prohibited, whether on purpose or by accident. And I felt the need for this plain talk because I've heard so many questions from folks, and I'm hoping this will go forward tonight.
Councilmember Fiskett.
I know we've discussed this in several prior meetings, but I want to make sure that our constituents' concern is addressed to make sure I understand the need for a roof in addition to a wildlife-proof dumpster. Is that redundant, and why do we take it to that extent if there's already an existing wildlife-proof dumpster that has its own built-in split or?
My understanding was that, in our discussions, council wanted to require enclosures for multifamily units and, businesses, commercial establishments. If we're going to require enclosures, it's my understanding that they should be wildlife-proof enclosures. We do have an exception so people can reach out to me if there's going to be a hardship doing that, and they've found a way to address it. I can give an extension, and there's no necessarily limit on how long that extension can last. But the idea is the enclosures should have probably never been built that way in the first place. The wildlife was here back then. People knew that. Roof enclosure is a better concept for so many levels. A roof sealed enclosure, just from access for people getting into it. It made sense. I felt for the council to have wildlife-proof enclosures with the roof and 4 walls, especially since it makes enforcement significantly easier. We're not going to be driving around opening enclosure doors to make sure they have a wildlife-proof container that's properly latched and locked up. There are people who come to the town manager and ask for a waiver or an extension. We'll at least know who it is at that point.
Any other discussion? Is there any other discussion? Councilmember Hagan.
I think you summed up this very elegantly, and so I'd just like to second what you said, and I think that was very good, so thank you.
Just sorry, Councilmember Campbell is not here to vote with us.
Is there any other discussion? Can I have a motion? Councilmember Hagan,
I move to approve ordinance 2025-0-06 regarding wildlife-proof refuse containers and the feeding of wildlife.
there's a second. Councilmember Kerr.
I'll second that.
All right, is there any discussion? I'd like to, again, make a comment very much along the lines of Councilmember Kerr and Councilmember Hagan. This is an issue that has existed in many areas of Keystone for probably since Keystone's foundation, particularly in the commercial side of the business. Many of the HOAs in Keystone already have containers. In fact, most of them have containers with roofs already to address the issue. And I would, so I consider the passing of this ordinance very, very important. But I would also ask the town manager to, if this ordinance passes tonight, that he would work with those, particularly the HOAs, and that need to make upgrades and be relatively lenient as long as there is not an issue, a clear and present issue with that HOA that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. The second piece of this is another reason I'm willing to, that I'm supporting the ordinance, is something that Councilmember Hagan brought up. I think even when we were work sessioning this as well, on the issue of coming up with some sort of rebate program to help the single family homeowners to be able to help afford this, because again, a bear-proof trash container is probably about $300. And I look forward to the town manager bringing that rebate ordinance to us, because I think it's essential. I wouldn't want this to be, there needs to be some sharing cost in there, but I would like it not to be a oppressive cost on our single family homeowners.
And I anticipate I'll have that to you before this ordinance actually becomes effective.
So if there's no other comments, can I have a motion?
I was moved to approve this
Oh,
ordinance.
yes, I'm sorry,
You're okay.
it's been,
And
and you was already seconded. I apologize, I specifically waited until after the motion was made before I made my comment, and then immediately forgot the motion. So with that, if there's no other discussion, I'll call for a vote, and will the clerk please I'll call the roll.
Councilmember Kerr.
approved.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Approved.
Councilmember Quista.
Approved.
Councilmember Hagnell.
Approved.
Mayor Riley.
Approved.
There are 5 votes to approve.
Again, I'd like to thank the town manager and the staff for putting forward, particularly that last ordinance. The next item is resolution 2025-08, a resolution of the town council of the town of Keystone, Colorado, adopting the town of Keystone business tax fee schedule. With that, I'll turn it over to the town manager.
Okay, at our last, sorry, at the last meeting, the town council adopted an ordinance establishing the business licensing program. That ordinance specifically called out that fees would be set by resolution. That way the council has more freedom to change the fees at any time in the future, rather than writing that into the ordinance. After discussion, we set the fees as $50 for an annual license, $25 for peddler, solicitor, and transient vendor, not to exceed $50 in any year. The year runs from July 1st to June 30th of the following calendar year. I would recommend, after a discussion with the mayor, that if you move to adopt this resolution. You move to adopt the resolution amending the fee schedule to remove any reference to the years 2025, 26. That way you don't have to address this resolution every year. We only have to come up with it if we want to change it. Any questions?
Councilmember Hagan.
Is there a plan in place for the town to communicate with the businesses that would be affected by this? Or how would, if I was the business owner, how would I be made aware of this if I do not attend or listen to council meetings?
Well, interestingly, that's kind of the main reason for the business license program, so that we know who the businesses are in town and how to contact them. But we will be reaching out every way possible to make sure the businesses understand this program is starting, and including reaching out to the chamber, to Vail Resorts, to anyone we can talk to and get the message out there, posting it on our webpage. Hopefully get something in the Summit Daily. That doesn't guarantee anything. It's hard to say. It'll be easy to get a lot of our businesses because we know where they are, but there are other businesses that just won't know, except anyone in business should be kind of looking out for whether there's regulatory licensing required.
Are there other comments, questions, staff? Hearing none, can I have a motion? Councilmember Sullivan.
I move to move the motion.
Resolution 25.
Oh. But that is the wrong number.
Yeah. Can I do it, Ken?
Yes, you may.
Motion to approve resolution 2025-08 business licensing fees.
Looking at it.
With the amendment of
Removing reference.
removing reference to the current years. So it can be not
Right.
very addressed and perpetuate.
Is there a second? Councilmember Sullivan.
I can do so.
Is there, any discussion? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. And I'll ask the clerk to call the roll. If it's not needed.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Approved.
Councilmember Thista.
Approved.
Councilmember Hagnow.
Approved.
Councilmember Kerr. Approved. Mayor Riley.
Approved.
There are 5 votes to approve.
Now that's been adopted, one comment I'd like to make, and I'd just like to thank the town manager for addressing the council's concern about the costliness of a business license. I think this is one of the lowest cost business licenses in Summit County, and I think it's probably very appropriate for this. The next item is approving resolution 2025-09. A resolution of the Town Council of Town of Keystone, Colorado, approving the intergovernmental agreement for the Intermountain Transportation Planning Region. That I'll turn it over to the town manager.
It's finally here. This IGA was actually supposed to be passed by all the members of the Intermountain Transportation Region, I believe, in April of 2024. However, there was discussion about splitting the IMTPR into 2 regions, combining a couple other TPRs into 1 region. The Transportation Commission in November made it clear that that is not going to be happening. So the IMTPR has finally released the IGA for all the members to sign, including the town of Keystone. Despite the fact that there was not an IGA overseeing the entire IMTPR basically from last year, they did informally give us a formal vote at the table. So our voice was heard. This just puts it all in writing. This is the exact same IGA being addressed and seen by all the other communities listed on the front page of it. It's, if we want a voice in planning for CDOT funding in our region, it's important that we sign up with this IGA.
Are there any questions of staff? Councilman Higgins?
When looking at the geographic area, impacted by this, we're looking all the way over to Aspen, and Pickens County, Garfield County, all of that. It's a very, very large geographic area. Do you feel that, the IMTPR does a good job of, distinguishing and validating, transportation concerns in our area versus other areas of this very large geographic area?
No, but that's why the members of the IMTPR tried to get the Transportation Commission to divide us. We have, I think it's close to twice the vehicle miles of any other TPR. And I think there's 13 of them in the state. And we really should have been split into two regions, and the two southeast regions should have been combined, but it's the best we can do under state mandates.
Thank you.
It's a political issue. And unfortunately, even within the IMTR, our portion of the IMTR doesn't have the influence that it should have, given the visitorship that we have. The IMTR is unfortunately controlled largely by folks further west of us and north of us. I think that's probably a fair statement, isn't it, Mr. Town Manager?
No one north, but definitely west.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking west and northwest, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's the best we can do, and this bias majority gives this region one more vote in the IMTR, which starts to level the playing field, and there may be some ways in the future to further level the playing field.
Actually, our region even covers the road leading between Grand Junction and Rankin.
So, any other questions of staff? Any discussion by council? Councilmember Kerr.
Our town manager is being modest. So as he points out, I've represented him before he existed for us. And this group is very welcoming. We may have only one vote. And so that we are one of 6 from Summit County, maybe 7 Wood County. But across the board, Val is one vote, as well as other members of Eagle County. So the bottom line, the bottom line is we have a voice at these meetings. They've been very open, and town manager has managed to put our top 3 transportation priorities on their agenda, which is going to count in the long run. One other point to what you were talking about, Jonathan, Councilmember Hagenow, is at the very first meeting, there was a discussion about seeing if it was possible to divest I-70 discussions from any of the transportation planning regions. Obviously, they got caught up in just deciding about splitting us, but I-70 gets all the attention, and that is skewed versus, but yeah, for everything else. I appreciate your question, it's smart.
Are there any comments or discussion? In that case, I don't think I've asked for a motion yet. Councilmember Kerr.
I move to approve resolution 2025-09 of the Town of Keystone Town Council approving the intergovernmental agreement with the IMTPR, that is Intermountain Transportation Plan Region.
For a second,
Second.
Councilmember Hagenow seconded. Any discussion? Councilmember Hagenow.
While this is not the perfect solution in my view, I think that it allows us a formal seat at the table, and it is the common sense next step for us to take. I do think that there is a future where we can look at improvements to representing our area in particular, Summit County in this highly trafficked area. Which is a little bit different than other geographic regions of the state, but I think it's better than nothing, and it's the right choice to make right now.
Any other comments, discussion? Councilmember Kerr.
Just to continue that, probably in the short term, our best approach is close cooperation, collaboration with other Summit County towns and county itself, so that we are a voting bloc.
In fact, that's the exact approach that our neighbors further to the west and the northwest of us have done. And I know there's discussion going on within Summit, trying to get, build those sorts of coalitions to support our needs as well. So, are there any other discussions? Then, again, I've lost track of things as I normally do. Do I have a motion already or not?
Yeah.
Yes. In that case, no other discussion. I'll ask for I'll call the question, and all those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed, and it's been passed unanimously. The next item on the agenda is other matters, and excuse me, is report of the town manager and staff, and I'll turn it over to the town manager.
And I'm gonna start my report actually by letting our community development director, Lindsay Burke, talk to you a little bit about what's happening with RTAP and the comprehensive plan.
So, it's exactly what I want to do. I want to start it off by saying, the RTAP, as you're aware, is having an event tomorrow and Thursday. And keep in mind that process is supplemental to what SE Group, who's handling our master plan for. So just to reiterate that, whatever transpires through the RTAP process, the way I'm looking at it is it's really testing the water. It's testing the water on many, many different levels. Public participation. I'm very interested to see the efforts that staff has made, they have made with regards to various different ways of reaching out. I want to know how successful it is and where it's being heard. So, we've done a blast out of a lot of technical information and via our webpage, their webpage. We put up over 100 flyers to various throughout the town. So while I understand this is a little unorthodox with regards to how we're handling this, we had an opportunity that I decided would be a good opportunity to bolster a portion of your master plan. And that's exactly what the RTAP process is going to do. We may or may not use various portions of whatever comes out of it. SE Group will be there both Wednesday, tomorrow and Thursday. Kind of overseeing it, kind of taking it in. So while it's certainly primarily the RTAP people, SE Group will be on the side, kind of taking notes as well and participating to some degree. I encourage all of you to go, but I want you to go not as council members, okay? I want you to go as citizens. I do not want you to start influencing the general public, all right? Do that for me. Come on. So basically, tomorrow I'm doing a site visit, and I believe Andrew's gonna help me, with the RTAP group. I think there are gonna be 10 of us, I think. Something similar to what has already been done with the SE group, which I'm gonna get to in a minute. And then in the afternoon, they're gonna do some breakout sessions to really garner some goals and objectives and see what's important to the citizens of Keystone. Our last check 2 days ago was we got about 39 RSVPs. I suspect it's gonna be higher. And then on Thursday, they're gonna do more implementation strategies for the goals that are being set tomorrow. So again, it's gonna be incredibly interesting with regards to what transpires. And, I'm pretty excited with regards to, how it works. And I think we can learn some things from whatever transpires, during this process to make the comp plan process even better. So with that being said, I encourage you to go. I am also looping back with planning commission, planning and zoning commission. They are getting an update on the 20th, virtually, from SE Group. I want to tell you what's going on. They want to tell you, I want to tell you what's going on with that. And basically what SE Group has been doing, is gathering data and information. And quite frankly, it's pretty impressive and overwhelming with regards to the amount of information. Andrew and I are going through that, making sure it's accurate. And then, they're going to start the next process, which is the public outreach. What else do I have for you? I do want to note, I know there's been some interest, I've heard some interest from both planning commissioners and council, I believe, with regards to, the trails and the open space portion. I think it'll barely be touched on, through the RTAP process. I think it'll be mentioned, but not in any great detail. I will tell you that SE Group is doing a comprehensive inventory of everything, all the existing, rec and open space improvements. And I'm working with the county right now to also do that inventory of, who owns what and how to get it over to us. That will be more, the open space and trails portion will be more the SE Group in the comp plan process, I would imagine. I am getting, at your next meeting, SE Group will be making a presentation to you with regards to a progress report. So 2 weeks from tonight, you'll hear SE Group and you'll get a, progress report, where we are now and what the next step is. So, that's what I have for you. Feel you got something.
Any questions? Councilmember Sullivan?
Couple of comments. I do think it's important that the town be perceived as leading this, so you guys are going to take off of this.
Oh, yeah. No, that's in the agenda.
Make sure that you guys are.
Yes, absolutely.
In fact, I plan to give some introductory remarks as they started. But I will attend, I'll just take this opportunity, I plan to attend as much of those sessions as I can in the next 2 days. However, I do not plan to make any comments on the progress, because I don't want to influence as our community development director indicated, I don't want to be perceived as trying to influence the results. I really view this as an opportunity to listen. And I would encourage any council member to attend the table.
One comments from the chair. I agree. There. I think you want to make sure you explain the relationship between this and the comprehensive plan and fast plan. So upfront, so people understand.
Yep.
One of the things I didn't understand was that the Wednesday session is going to be different than Thursday, Friday.
That, there is no Friday.
I mean, sorry, the two Thursday.
Basically,
Yeah.
tomorrow afternoon is going to be getting ideas. What's the town want to look like visually? And then Thursday, it's more, how do you make that happen? I mean, that's like an oversimplification, but then in essence, that's what it is.
Okay, because I know the first time today, I don't think it was 3 sessions on the same thing.
They're breakout sessions. Different groups will be doing different things. But cumulatively, they'll all be going towards vision and goals. Then the implementation will be, how do you make that happen?
But I mean, so the day one really is ideas, and then day 2 is breakouts of some of the ideas. Okay, and that was, And that's a little different than what some people thought or what I thought.
Well,
I thought it was the same session all 3 times, but
no,
that's,
so I believe in the package that you have seen, there are 4 goals. That's just to get them, categorized. Though that's what, the focus on tomorrow afternoon will be. And they're broken out in to garner some input. Then there'll be some exercises with regards to how to make that happen. So
okay, well,
it's an interesting approach. I'm curious to see how it will work. There'll be stations, if you will, around this room and maybe even the hallway with regards to activities. Put a dot where you think there's a problem with transportation. Put a dot where. Not one with that. No, like, all right, maybe that's not the best example. Where would you like to see improvement? Vitality, stuff like that. So it'll be an interesting exercise.
Yeah.
And again, sit back and let's see what comes of this.
the 2 other comments, and one that came from some citizens, they said, is how limiting should their visioning be geography wise? Because they look at Keystone versus the pieces that they own. And my suggestion to them was think about all of Keystone.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
I think you want to make that clear when you present.
Okay, I think the maps and we'll take care of that, but I'd be glad to be able to, that's right.
And then the last thing that they said was, what should they expect with regards to output? And I think you answered that, but that's something
Yeah,
that.
it's a good question. I believe there'll be a series of recommendations based on the goals that come out on that first day. I think there'll be implementation strategies on how to make some of that work. Which I believe, I don't know this for sure, but in some shape, form, or manner, a portion of your comp plan will incorporate those recommendations. So we can actually make it happen.
And my suggestion is that we actually show something after the fact. Here's to the populace. They all came here, they gave their ideas. They just want to be recognized that they were somehow.
That's what I forgot. So, it is we all got that, I think we all got that. Their final, presentation, their final is on the 29th of April. I'm working with the lead right now to, get that, it's only a 20-minute presentation, but change that date to some degree to your scheduled meeting, on the 20, whatever that April New Year's before, so 22nd, I believe.
Look forward to this.
So I'm excited, curious and excited. But
Councilor Hayden,
So one thing that caught my attention, and maybe I misunderstood it, but you mentioned that the Thursday meeting was, the first meeting was gonna be focusing on the visioning, and then the meeting after that's gonna be focused on the actual implementation strategies.
we make it happen, yes.
How does 13 hours between the 2 meetings create substantial actual idea? Like, I used to cram college, right? But I wouldn't say that I want 13 hours to be when they create their strategies for implementation.
Honestly, I believe there'll be some further goal setting during that visioning portion of it. And it is really hard, if someone comes up with an additional idea or concern, we're not going to stifle it. And they are doing some exercises in groups on that day to spur some other ideas too.
So is it safe to say that the second workshop is going to be more community focused strategies and gathering and less presentations from the group with strategies?
Yes. That's my understanding.
am I correct that the actual real implementation will probably occur through the conference?
Well, that's a very interesting way of saying it. Because comp plans are advisory in nature, it is an instrument to set regulations upon.
Right.
So a strict interpretation of what you asked would say no, but it sets the setting, the tone, the goal, and how to get there. But the actual way to implement it is via an ordinance to address that issue.
Councilmember Fiske.
More of a point of information, when you refer to the comp plan, is that synonymous with the master plan?
Same thing.
Okay.
Because if we're a town, more people refer to them as comp plans,
Okay.
but they're interchangeable.
It's the effort that the C group is doing.
Yes.
I guess I see a need in, after the comp plan is done before, what I've always called the master plan, which is really where do we want to be in 10 to 20 years, and then how do we get there, which is more planning, implementation document.
Yes, that's what they're doing. Based on public input, and citizen input, and meeting after meeting after meeting, and gathering information that is specific to your community.
Like, I think we all need to keep in mind that this is a student project led by students. The architect, the meeting tomorrow is a student project. And so there's limitations with them based on their schedule, the class timelines and everything else that were basically laid upon us versus us being able to drive like we can with the SE group. I would encourage the staff to work with the community as we go forward on the comp plan and ensure that we don't have, a meeting set up like this that do not provide ample opportunity for the entire community to participate. I recognize the limitations with our time and the students, but we need to make sure that the community outreach piece would have multiple sessions to gather the same information of working with the community. This is, if this was the comp plan, I think you would see me enraged on the subject.
That is actually not what this is.
I know, but
So thank you. The contract that we signed outlined step by step by step by steps of what's going to transpire. And a large majority of it, which is the next phase after we gather the data, is the public outreach.
Councilmember Fiske.
I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but I just want to make sure that tomorrow, based on the town council's initial confusion and reception of this particular element, that tomorrow it is distinguished between where this came from and how it relates to the master plan, and the fact that this is an independent element that isn't necessarily exactly in line with what we had run with the master plan, but more of a supplement.
You said the next report. It is supplemental.
I just want people to understand that they're not missing out on something.
So, I heard you early on versus this year, and, I made that very, very clear to Thayer and to the point where I was borderline offending, the students. So I will do that again tomorrow and on Thursday, but
More for the constituents. I'm less
well, I
concerned
know,
about
but they
them.
understand.
Yeah, but I mean, just so the constituents understand how this aligns with our timeline and our original intent. Because I even had some confusion about this when this was advertised. I was like, wait, I don't understand how this fits, because maybe, I don't know, maybe I missed the meeting where we discussed it, but,
Potential piece of your master plan.
okay, but
That's it.
that it's different. It's not being run necessarily by you guys. This isn't an official part, but being run by the SC group. We just saw it as an extra element that could supplement that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's all it is. I mean, I hate that this is recorded, but I will say that this, it's a student project.
Okay.
And I believe these students are pretty damn sharp. And they potentially could bring us fresh perspective that no one here has thought of. So there are only pluses, and we're not obligated to utilize any of it. But I do believe it'll be it potentially could be instrumental to a very small portion of the company. First step.
And if I may weigh in on two parts, the CSU students involved in this are also very smart.
Oh,
Yeah, and, parts of this plan, we'll see when we get it, may be able to stand alone outside of the comp plan too, and the recommendations. But it's a separate document that we may integrate parts of into the comp plan or may use as we see fit. That's all.
We're not obligated.
And really, probably have this wrong, but, this is something that's being developed, supporting the community development department for support the town. Whereas the comp plan is being developed by a contractor hired by the town, working for the planning commission with oversight responsibility of its development, with ultimate approval for yes.
Yes. And, Carol's giving me the look. Let's see how this goes. I'm confident that we'll be able to utilize a portion of this study.
Is there any other questions? Then I'll go back to the town manager.
Okay, now I'll give my target members a thank you, Lindsay. Yeah, I will keep this really short. I'll start out a few dates. The resort schedule closing is April 7th, the last day, then would be Sunday, April 6th. I don't see that changing regardless of snow conditions. Our retreat is still scheduled for Thursday, April 17th. And we are scheduling a town cleanup day for May 31st that will coincide with the countywide and all the other towns. HC3 helps put together and advertise the town cleanup days. If we do it on that day, that's not the same day that Keystone Mountain does theirs. They have to wait till snow is gone. But I'll get to that. We had last week, or yesterday, not last week, the mayor and I met with Shannon Bueller, the COO of Vail Resorts. I felt it was once again a very productive meeting. We discussed the sidewalk from Brightwood, from Four Corners to the lodge, and Shannon is going to meet with her leadership team and discuss if it's possible for them to contribute to the cost and to discuss the need for an easement on a small portion of land in front of the lodge tying in. She seemed very happy about the idea of the sidewalk though in general. She sees those employees walking in their black coats down the road in the middle of the night too. We also talked about the median maintenance this summer, and we're still working out something that will work for everyone involved. I don't think anyone has any intention of laying medians just die this summer. Very, very productive cost. I'm not going to speak for Vail Resorts and Shannon. They have to go through their processes and chains of command in the same way I do. So,
I'd like to echo it was, I think, a very productive meeting. There were no commitments made by either side in that, but I got the sense that Vail Resorts is going to seriously consider our issues and concerns in the area, and we'll come back with an opportunity to address something.
Does it make sense for her to come in and address the council and make introductions or FaceTime with the rest of the council?
So, she did commit to a few things, including her leadership team showing up at our town cleanup. And, she is going to come in a meeting in April,
Or 1st of May.
or 1st of May. He's trying to work out her calendar, but she absolutely committed to be here. At least the latest would be our first meeting in May to workshop and meet the council and discuss goals and plans and issues that we share in common. She also committed to continuing to work. The mayor's introduced the idea that they come up with a list of their goals and plans that they think coincide with the town, and we come up with our goals and plans that coincide with the resort and see where we have common ground that we can work things out. And we also started talking somewhat about our trail system, the community trails throughout. And it all started with the discussion of the town, when should we're gonna have to plow once, our community trail from West Keystone down towards where the town limits are, actually, probably stop at the bridge across the river unless we can coordinate with the county or some other entity as they plow through the golf course, but to open the trail. There will be melt, but there will be some requirement for plowing and sweeping, things like that.
Because historically, the county has not done any maintenance, further maintenance or upkeep of that trail. So this, and the real issue is not just the river course which is our the town limits, but it's also the whole rest of the trail as it goes down to Summer.
Yeah, there's really no point in us plowing our end if just gonna end up in big snowbank down there too. Had a meeting with Blair McGarry from Excel Energy yesterday and a couple of the Excel engineers. She also will be coming to a workshop in April to discuss two things. Their natural gas their mountain energy plan, and to discuss their wildfire plan. It was very productive and informative. I think you as a council will very much benefit by meeting with Blair. Speaking of wildfires, we're continuing to put together the evacuation plan for Summit County. The sheriff has just published a survey. You can get to it by Googling Summit County Sheriff. The link to it is obvious on the front page of the sheriff's page, that they're conducting a survey on evacuation and wildfire response. That survey is open until May 15th. I encourage everyone to participate, especially if you've had any experience with wildfires or evacuations in any sort of way.
You know, I would encourage the staff to communicate that survey, how to get to it over all of the communications mediums that we can incorporate to the community.
As we'll discuss a little later, we have opened our discussions for the purchase of this building and land. It's nice to get that ball rolling. That's all I'll discuss here. We'll discuss it a little later in executive session. I know some council members brought up Blue Vector and how we can use it across a wider platform than just SDRs. I've talked about this with our town clerk, and currently we're waiting to see if we get an additional grant from the state to fund more development, to expand. What's starting out is our just STR licensing program to see what extent we can expand that to cover more operations, but until we have a better idea of what state finances are available and, we're not gonna make a decision on how we go forward. We'll be bringing that back up to you guys in the future.
You know, I don't know about the rest of the council members, but I would encourage you to not be relying strictly on state grant.
Yeah.
I think we have sufficient surpluses that if we were in a position of having to fund something in that area to expand it to a better, more responsive capability, I suspect the council would be willing to listen to that option and make a decision of whether or not to go forward in that area. Councilmember Hagan.
Well, I know there is probably no formal process or plan, but what are some of the additional operations that could be potentially covered by this that would incur cost?
Well, if we're talking AI, I mean, it depends on the development of computers, but it's limitless to some extent. We're talking at this point, things like business licensing and
So automating the processes.
automation. Yes.
Sharing information on the back end.
Yes.
To make it more
Yes.
responsive.
You know, I know I've had discussions with you, Mr. Town Manager, and the town clerk, to take advantage of some of those capabilities, the databases that the AI could learn from to further automate the process for the short-term rentals, to assist in the finance director in monitoring the payment of the lodging tax and the sales tax, to do those comparisons that we're going to need to do to ensure that taxes are indeed being paid, to streamline those processes as well. I know the town clerk has talked about further work on some of the STR areas with complaints in some of those areas. There are database needs, there are changes that need to be made in the database and other areas, the lessons learned that the clerk has had in those areas as well. So I think there's a lot of things that need to be done, which is why I asked the manager not wait until for grants. I think the council would be, at least I would be very interested in looking at what the options and potential costs.
Even up to emergency response.
Yeah.
And we've discussed our problems with addressing in many of our systems. That's not necessarily ever going to be changed on the assessing system, but if we have quick, rapid ability for our police department to cross-check an address that we might have through some other way, it can only help. That, as the mayor brought up, the finance director and I today, we're trying to compare sales tax to lodging tax, and it's much more difficult than either of us expected. Just using spreadsheet tools. There's slight differences, things like that. There might be data entry mistakes on the field we're searching at a different field. There's so many different fields, AI can just process them all quicker.
If I might just make 3 comments, I love the idea. Just, I personally, if this were to come back to us, I'd like to see the financial ramifications, like a case study, right? Spend this much, we could see this much in revenue, security of the system, right? Tech is something that can be hacked, and organizations and governments are seen having to pay out ransoms for this, and then so what does the resiliency look like, right? What's the security, what's the long-term use of this? Is there proven success in this? And so those are just things I would ask for the future to see in that proposal.
In fact, in many of these areas, I think clerk and the staff is looking at, we would probably be a pace setter probably in the country for doing some of these things. Which is what was proposed, as I remember, when the proposal initially came. It goes back to our initial vision.
And speaking of lodging tax, we do know there's still some outstanding payments due. But we collected just over 260,000 for the month of January. which is pretty much on target of what we were anticipating. There's still, like I said, some outstanding people, and we'll get that figured out. Our finance director will be reaching out to those entities that we've identified haven't paid. We just received our state sales tax, so that gives us a good. We can compare lodging companies that have paid the state sales tax but not paid their town lodging tax, identify those other entities. We're working on it. And next meeting is March 25th, and that's all I've got for my manager's report.
Councilmember Clifton.
I know that one of the meetings that I recently missed, the Summit Fire District attended. I'm wondering if you saw any of the communications with Fire Station 11 to try to engage with our community fire station.
I reached out, we're going to get something put together.
And then I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time, but offline, we discussed our affordable housing program, the potential debt restriction program.
Those people, we're working on that too, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the town members?
One more comment I didn't make. We did get CDOT up here this Sunday to fill in potholes. There's still so many. I did see the guy on Sunday, and he had a full truck of coal patch that he used up here on Sunday. We're still in contact with CDOT. We plan on sitting down in the next couple of weeks to discuss. We're starting to have serious deterioration of Highway 6, and it's not your typical state road. It is part of I-70 as far as I'm concerned. Vehicles on I-70 are required to use Highway 6. This is not a detour or a bypass. And so we're very desperate need of milling and repaving at the very least.
But potholes in the meantime.
And I would echo the pothole situation, because what we're seeing when we drive, I drive the full length of Highway 6 through Keystone because of where I live multiple times a day. And what we're starting to see is people in passenger vehicles and some of the commercial trucks swerving out of lanes because of the quantity and how deep the potholes are into other lanes. And it's so dangerous. I mean, it's really scary to drive through Keystone.
Yep. And, wait till they actually don't swerve and hit a pothole and break their axle, break a tire, have a blowout. It's just front loaded with fuel. Something CDOT has to address.
On that, when CDOT was up there, was there any conversation about the malfunctioning flashing sign?
Yes, they are coming out pretty much every week and fixing it, and then it's breaking again. So we give them weekly calls.
Any other questions from the town manager?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Councilmember Kerr.
Open trails and open spaces in business. The two commissions / boards that we have decided on, I know it's going to 30 days, but what is the timeline? You start recruiting.
Well, I'd say we should start recruiting business right now. It's a good way to try to reach out about our license requirement too.
Good news, bad news kind of thing.
Yeah. And I know that the trails and open spaces being included as part of the comp plan. So,
It's a separate activity.
well, it's a separate activity, but the intention is rather than form a comp plan trails and open space committee and then a separate trails and open space committee, we form the trails and open space committee, and their first assignment is tasked to contribute.
So that sounds perfect plan, which begs the question, will that happen in the next couple weeks so that they can be?
See, and I actually specifically asked Lindsay to be here so we could answer that. I don't know the answer to that, but it will be happening. Yeah.
Because if that selection has to occur before the advice goes into the comp plan, effective plan, because
Yeah,
that's the group you want to identify. I would rather not have a group identified by the staff to provide that advice, and then come to the council and say, oh, by the way, here are the guys that provided that advice, not me, and reps.
so, yeah, that'll be one way or the other happening in the next couple of weeks.
Any other questions? All right, now we have the, report of the mayor and the council. Does the council have any reports to make? Oh, yeah, Councilman Stoll.
Just a real quick comment about post office. It's a little disappointing that, I think I told you, the postmaster general resigned, but we still think they're gonna have their board meeting in Washington, on, this May 8th, 7th. May 8th, I think.
All right.
And assuming that goes on, the local postmaster here is working with his team to make sure it's on the agenda. And then therefore the mayor and the town manager have offered to meet with our federal representatives in Washington to connect with, I guess it would be Amber McReynolds now, who's the chairman of the board of governors, to push initially the request for a zip code on the process. And so
I've met with the staffs of both Senator Bennett and Congressman Goose. They've agreed to support the need for a zip code for the Board of Governors meeting. I've got a issue paper to explain the issue to them so that they can write their support letter coherently that actually means something. And I will start the follow-on discussions with them on Thursday. They normally attend our mayor managers council meeting, and we'll get them going on that process for a May 7th or 8th Board of Governors meeting. Thanks, Councilmember Hagan.
One thing I recall from the CAS meeting in Breckenridge, was the comment that previously there has been physical presence in Washington to drive initiatives like this. Do we need to consider a lobbyist, a representation, one of us going out there, staff going out there and being present there to be the thorn in the side to make sure this gets over the finish line? Or do we think that these letters of support and papers are going to be enough to show the severity of this impact on our community?
Want to address it in the meeting?
Interestingly, like at the CAS meeting, they were really talking about representation in front of electeds, who tend to be more responsive. I will ask our staffers of our Congress people what they think, but I don't know in a case like this with an appointed board, whether it would help or hinder.
Whether they would even
allow
entertain
it, yeah.
a meeting on it. Particularly given the other issues they're facing, which is the potential privatization of post office.
Yeah.
In the end, we are probably best served for this particular thing through indirectly.
Yeah.
Give the words to those representatives so they know how to make our.
Yeah, and then what we'll do is put the words together in a manner in the language that our representatives can use, so that we'll go in with congressional input reflecting that. All right, any other comments by Councilmember Kerr?
So last time I entertained you with a few points from the CML legislative session, and to remind you that Colorado Municipal League represents us with the state legislature on any bill or proposed bill that might interfere with our home rule ability to make our own decisions. We are also members of CAST, and while there is some overlap, the Colorado Association of Ski Towns actually uses CML as their lobbying arm, There are 3 initiatives that came out of CAS this summer that I wanted to bring your attention to, especially since some of you were at that meeting. Where was it? Durango, right. So, this summer, several ski towns in CAS pressed for authorization to tax vacant homes. We were not one of those. The bill was intended to be permissive so that towns and cities could decide to tax, but didn't need to. Senator Dylan Roberts had early interest, but he's moved his support to a different bill. And the vacant tax initiative has not been introduced. So I just want you to know what the status of, because people are linking these to all CAS towns, which is not necessarily true. A second initiative was for an excise tax bill to allow statutory towns to ask the voters to authorize taxes, just as home rule towns do. That bill has gone nowhere. I bring that up because if we do want to get behind a bill, it requires a lot of grassroots efforts so that constituents understand it and they help press legislators who would have to sponsor this through all the hoops that are involved. So setting those two aside, the third initiative is moving forward. Senator Roberts is sponsoring another CAS initiative to authorize counties to tax up to 6% in lodging taxes, which is now limited to 2%. If you read Robert Tam's excellent news piece in the Summit Daily, you'll also see that the lodging industry is lobbying heavily against that. So Dylan Roberts' position is it gives more latitude to counties to expand that tax use in amounts and in use to affordable housing and childcare, which is part of the character of our resort area, to have to be concerned with both visitors and residents alike. So I'll save my next one for another day.
But that one would not involve, we would not be impacted by if that lodging tax was it only applies to the contemporaries of the county.
Right. So so what we are seeing is the towns and counties around us are pressing it up. The lodging tax if they can.
Well, the county's really pushing it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't impact any incorporated county.
But
So
they don't get as much money as.
would that then allow us to increase?
No, it doesn't affect us. I just wanted you to be aware of this.
But
This is
given
what's going on
what
around
we
us.
did, could have an impact on where we are. Total tax and lodging vis-a-vis everyone else. So
Even lower than everyone else if the county raises that.
Precisely.
Have some resistance.
In the event that there are legislative actions that some of the organizations that we're members of are taking positions on, I just want to ensure that we'll have an opportunity as a council to discuss that action and decide whether or not we support regardless of our association with any of those
That is
organizations.
absolutely wise and valid.
Any other reports? I have one brief one. Everything else has been covered. The National Brotherhood of Ski Sports, had their meeting here since our last council meeting, talking to Mayor Shannon. It was a tremendous success. They were extremely happy, coming to Keystone. And while we probably won't see them next year, we're certainly on their list of towns to come back to in the future. The last registration numbers I saw were somewhere over 2,100. And that's all for any other reports?
Question on that, Ken, did NBS share any final decision on where they might come in future years that affect us?
They're 1 year out, so it definitely won't be next year.
I more meant like countywide.
Vail didn't show that information. I didn't have that discussion with NBS particularly. But I've heard things like they're looking at going to Europe next year. They're expanding their base of membership now overseas. They have a chapter in London, for instance. So Is there any other reports? Question? Are there any other matters we need to discuss? Hearing none, I'm gonna do something different. Because I'm authorized to as the chair under Bob's rules. I'm gonna introduce a motion. That way we don't have to play games. I'd like to introduce a motion to go into executive session pursuant to CRS section 24-6-402, subpara 4, subpara B, and subpara E, subpara L, to discuss matters that may be subject to negotiation, develop strategies for negotiation, or to instruct negotiators and to receive legal advice related to the purchase of properties. Is there a second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We'll go to executive session in the executive conference.